of Thrones was well known to really kind of hate women, but the one group of women that they seemed to go out of their way to preserve in their goodliness were mothers. Kind of. Obviously, I'm just talking about the show here. This comment right here is asking me for my thoughts on Lady Stoneheart, and as I was like trying to put those thoughts together, it was hard to separate like the reasons that I think that she wasn't included in the show from how the showrunners treat women. And I've talked before about how they seem to have like a very narrow view of like femininity and womanhood and how that moves through the world. But it's interesting because like an exception to that seems to be how they view motherhood in that universe. This isn't to say that they like go out of their way to like protect mothers from the violence that they frequently, you know, threw at them, a la Catelyn Stark, a la Cersei. But the violence tended to always be thrown at them like as individuals, and their context, like them as a mother, their motherhood itself was always protected. And that's interesting because in the books, we get varying degrees of like successful motherhood. You have probably the best example being Catelyn, with, you know, her one big blind spot being Jon. You have Cersei, you know, purportedly loving her kids, talking about loving her kids, but like her actions rarely like fully going along with that. But while there's this variation in the books, they don't really take that tact in the show. Catelyn Stark is shown to be a good mother, and like yes, she's mean to Jon, but the show later goes out of their way to like have her tell an anecdote of when like she realized her own cruelty to Jon and how it's like this part of her that she wishes she could overcome. So it doesn't like allow her to just have this this weakness, this bad quality in her motherhood. They like take active steps to try to explain it away or soften it by at least like giving her, letting her like acknowledge that she is in the wrong. And then in a similar vein with Cersei is interesting because like Cersei defines herself by her motherhood and her love for her children, but again, it's very surface level. It almost feels a bit more like how a narcissist loves, in that like they are just an extension of themselves, and that's how she values them. But the show doesn't, I don't think, really show you that. They purport that like Cersei's motherhood is her one redeeming quality, and they keep that throughout the series. Like while her children are alive, that's the one thing that's like keeping her good and like tying her to her sanity. And then, you know, once that's gone, that's when she's really lost everything. And then even later when she's like pregnant during the last 2 seasons, because she was pregnant forever without showing. But that's like the reason that Tyrion purports like she can be trusted, because her motherhood, that's the thing that's like giving us, grounding her, you know? And at the end of the day, this like view of motherhood as like the show is presenting it to us, I think is like really regressive, because it's like oversimplifying what motherhood can be, and that it's like the fix-all for everything, you know? Like if you're a bad person, don't worry, as long as you're a mom, it's all good, because that's going to be your one redeeming quality. And not allowing that complexity of motherhood and like varying degrees of success in motherhood, like doesn't match up with, you know, what the story is telling us, what you know, specifically the characters in the books are telling us. And that ultimately is, I think, one of the big reasons that Lady Stoneheart is not in the show. Yes, I know, we're like super far into the video and I'm finally getting to Stoneheart. I apologize. And yes, they've given other reasons that they like didn't want to muddy the other resurrections later. And then they have that, you know, their well-known dislike of the magical nature of the universe. But I think beyond that, because I do accept that those are big reasons, but I think at least thematically is like that's not how they like to view their women. Catelyn Stark is a good mother for the most part, and they went out of their way to make her seem like a better mother. And so Lady Stoneheart, the resurrected Catelyn Stark, is a monster. She is only filled with vengeance and hate and anger, and she's taking out on everyone. She is responsible for so many deaths right now where we leave off in the series, and I don't think they could reconcile those two things together, the good Catelyn and Lady Stoneheart. And it's really sad because this inability to like hold two things in your mind at once that they seem to suffer from rob us of a very fascinating character. Because Catelyn Stark is good. She is honorable. She does care about her duty. Like, she is a Tully. Like, that's what they care about. And to see the effects of the Red Wedding, like, personified in her resurrection is horrifying, because she has been robbed of all her humanity and you are left with this like creature. And what she turns into gives us such an interesting insight into the dangers of resurrection. Something that, you know, later they would continue to drop the ball on. But no, we're not going to plant those seeds because Jon ultimately needs to stay good. Lady Stoneheart can't exist because Catelyn Stark has to stay good. And our narrow view of the world is going to remain what it is. Boo. For real though, Lady Stoneheart is one of my favorite characters in the books that gets fully cut from the show. I was very crushed when she didn't appear. And she only appears a little bit in the book so far. But yeah, who is your favorite character from the books that does not appear in the TV show? And maybe I will make a video about them. Okay, bye.